Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Chance, and today I'm going to be talking about how to become a game master. More accurately, I'm going to be talking about my plan to become a game master. So, I'm not actually a game master yet. I am starting my journey on becoming a game master. So, essentially, I'm going to share with you my approach to starting a new hobby. This is a hobby that I've decided to try to achieve this year. I have kind of become enamored with the idea of TTRPGs, and I just don't have a group to play TTRPGs with. I have joined in on some D&D sessions, but I never really connected with it. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy what I did play of it. There was enough there where I wanted to explore this more, and I wanted to dive into this topic more. And as I mentioned, I've decided to make this kind of one of my goals and one of my hobbies for this year. So that's why I'm going to basically tell you about my approach to taking on a new hobby. I essentially have a 3-step process. The 3 steps being: 1 is indoctrination, 2 is preparation, and then 3 is execution. So the first stage is where I've spent most of my time so far. The first stage, indoctrination. Now, that sounds kind of negative, but I do it on purpose. So this is more of a lot of people like to think about this as the exploration phase, and you're just kind of researching different things and looking at different resources and following different creators and just being excited about the new hobby that you're about to explore. I do call this the indoctrination phase, mainly because of if you are doing something, let's say, more health or lifestyle related, there are certain silos you can get yourself trapped in, especially with, things like diets and stuff. And while I do think that doing things with your diet or health can be super beneficial, like maybe super into cold ice baths. I went through that. There's definitely a danger of kind of siloing yourself off from other information or contradictory information that maybe you don't want to accept. So I do like to call it this first stage indoctrination because I'm excited, and I think the best way to move forward is to try to kind of put yourself in the middle of that information and just put yourself and trap yourself in there. But also be aware that you are making a conscious choice to do this. So if you are doing something that can have kind of larger negative consequences, such as a dietary lifestyle change, you are still open to contradictory information. You're still open to hearing about other facts and other science and other opinions. This is much less of a risk with TTRPGs because there's not going to be a whole lot of risk of becoming siloed off in one camp of TTRPGs. Maybe you're, I don't know, the camp of, D&D is the only one, but I don't think I see a lot of that on the internet. Most people playing RPGs are very open, very friendly, and very excited that more people want to join their exciting hobby. So that's the exploration phase. Now, for my exploration, I've dove into various content creators. I would say my interest was piqued during the COVID session with the Epic NPC Man, that's Vivo Dirt League on YouTube, and they started creating a D&D series. Now, I would say I'd never connected with some of the other D&D series on YouTube. They were like, I think, Critical Role. They seemed a little, they're very, very well produced, but they do have the actors, and I would say Vivo Dirt League is a little bit different because they were kind of just starting off, and I found their sessions way more entertaining. I found their mistakes. I found their kind of relatability and just not knowing what they were doing to be way more engaging. So that triggered my initial interest, and then I did join a D&D group, and I did find some enjoyment in that process, and I enjoyed the storytelling process. And that kind of, I would say, petered out a little bit, or puttered out a little bit, and then I moved on to, I found Quinn's Quest. So Quinn used to be a primary reviewer on Shut Up and Sit Down for board games, and I play a ton of board games, so Quinn's Quest kind of popped up on my feed, essentially because that was closely related to other channels that I've watched and other material I've watched. And Quinn, he did a fantastic job of just opening up the world of RPGs and introducing me to the kind of the lesser known creators out there. I would say that some of these are still relatively big names in the RPG world, but definitely lesser known compared to something like D&D. And some of these RPGs, they connected with me a lot more than D&D did. So something like, here I got the Wild Sea here. This is a fantasy world. Essentially, you are a crew on a ship, but the world is basically overgrown by trees and fauna, and your ship does not sail on water, it sails among the treetops. So that right there was already a better hook for me than something like D&D. For me, the D&D fantasy just doesn't do it for me. I don't hate it, but it's not something that I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm super excited to look into. But sailing a ship along treetops, now that I'm in for. Then another one that he called out was Mothership. So I'll talk about this more on my kind of second step. But Mothership, sci-fi horror RPG. I thoroughly enjoy the game Nemesis and Nemesis Lockdown for board games, which is this semi-cooperative, almost, I would say role-playing adjacent, but game that not everyone enjoys. But sci-fi horror is something I 100% enjoy more than the fantasy world of D&D. So this kind of reignited my interest, and this brought me back into the exploration phase and starting watching more of, I guess, like Quinn's Quest, signing up for his Patreon and engaging with people on his channel, and also watching a few other, I would say, dungeon masters or game masters out on YouTube, and just really kind of diving in that world and just learning more about the world, learning the terminology, learning some of these other game systems and the options available to me. The other thing I kind of pick up during this phase is possible skills or areas that I might be lacking in. So I'm not actually taking any action on these things yet, but just kind of things that I'm noting. Kind of like a game master needs to be, I would say, relatively good on their feet. Be prepared to tell stories and be a little lower inhibition with trying to advance the plot, and also just being excited for your characters, your playable or your players in your game, and just being a fan of their characters. So to me, this kind of indicated maybe some creativity, essentially just building that creativity muscle might be an important part of moving forward with becoming a game master. So that's where I move on to phase 2. So phase 2 is preparation. This is where I take some of if I identify any skills that I might be lacking in, I need to see if I can find a way to kind of improve that area. And then also just start prepping for a campaign. Like, what does it take to run a campaign? And this is also the point where I get to kind of the exploitation phase. So I think there's two types of reading. I believe I heard this on Ali Abdal's YouTube channel, and he called it exploitation or exploration versus exploitation. So exploration is where you have an interest in this topic, and maybe you want to just learn a little bit more, but you're not too worried about applying these things in your life. You just want to kind of engage with that curiosity and consume material associated with it. So that exploration is great because that is where you are excited about something and you're excited to learn more, but also it's where you don't really apply the material. So this is the thing that most people tell you: if you're not applying it, you're not really making a lot of progress. So the exploration phase is a lot of fun, but eventually you should move on to that exploitation type of reading. Now for this part, I believe it's important to kind of just settle on one. So for me, I settled on Mothership. So Mothership, the sci-fi horror RPG. Now, there's a couple reasons why I chose this one. Number one, I mean, it speaks to me. So, right, this sci-fi horror is in my alley. If this doesn't speak to you, then this is probably not going to be where you settle. But there might be other reasons that you may want to explore this a little bit further and maybe even use this as a resource. Now, the main reason I picked this up is because of Quinn talking about how the Warden's Manual in Mothership was one of the best GM resources that he's ever encountered in a RPG game. And that right there was enough for me to say, hey, maybe this is probably a good place to start. I like sci-fi horror RPGs, and someone that has been doing RPGs for much longer than I have just said that this is a fantastic resource. So that's where the Warden's Manual comes in. This has fantastic advice on how to prep for your campaign, how to run your campaign, how to prep your players for a campaign, how to make things exciting for the whole table, how to keep your work as a game master kind of down to a minimum, but still have enough for your players for that night, and still just be prepared to have a good time. It even has I love this one page I opened to. It has a chart on kind of let's say the table excitement level throughout the night, and it goes through kind of the highs and lows of kind of a standard RPG session. So just stuff like that is just a fantastic resource. And this is going to be the book, this Warden's Manual is what I'm going to be using for my exploitation phase, and just working through trying to prep for my own campaign. Now, the other part of this preparation is building or strengthening that creativity muscle. So I'm an engineer, and I would say my creativity muscle has definitely atrophied over the years. I have not been using it anywhere near as much as I would like. I feel like this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this channel, is because I have been lacking creativity in my life, and I feel like I had way more of that when I was younger. So because of not using it for so long, I really need to find a way to re-engage with this side of myself and re-engage with that creativity. I'm basically going to be diving into some solo TTRPGs. So looking into this world of these RPGs has kind of opened up this, I would say, this Pandora's box of just these creators creating amazing things. And I just did not know this world existed. But these solo RPGs are, to me, just as exciting as kind of getting this campaign running. I'm super excited to be running this with my friends, but these solo RPGs, I get to kind of explore and create a world on my own. Something like, I believe it's Alone Among the Stars, where you're just visiting a planet, and then you get prompted and it says, hey, if you land on this planet, okay, you see a geological feature in the middle of an open field, describe what you see. It's just kind of this open-ended prompt, and it just triggers your imagination, and you write down and record what you found on this planet, and then you keep visiting more planets and seeing more features, and you create this whole story of your journey. So that's one thing that I'm excited to get involved with. There's a few other solo RPGs that I plan on trying out, and that's going to be things like Artifact, where you're not playing as a person, you're just playing as you're recording the history of an artifact. Think, Lord of the Rings, like the One Ring that rules Morrow, all kind of the history of that thing and how the people has passed through and what's happened during its lifespan's not the right word, but its existence in the world. Then there's some other ones like The Last Tea Shop, where you're dealing more with death, and you're playing the keeper of the final location after someone dies, before they go to whatever's beyond that. And you get to listen to their stories, or I should say, you get to create their stories. Then there's a couple space ones like The Wretched or Notorious. So lots of solo RPGs that I plan on using, and I plan on starting with. I believe I'll be doing The Last Tea Shop and Artifact are the two that I'm looking closely at starting with, and I'll be doing some recordings on those on this channel and kind of reviews and feedback on that. And that's going to be part of this kind of preparing to run my own campaign. One of the other reasons I'm doing this is because I feel that you could kind of go into step 3 without doing this type of exercise, but I do have some social anxiety, and I get a bit stressed about doing this type of thing. So to me, this is kind of preparation that I'm doing to ease that anxiety, to try to, it's kind of like when I was in school and just over preparing for tests all the time. I would spend probably way too long staying up all night, and that's probably just terrible practice in general, but my stress about that event was just so high that I didn't have another way to cope with it. I think I've gotten better over the years, but I still need to do some of that preparation to ease some of my own anxiety. So that creativity prep will kind of feed into this next stage. So the last stage is going to be the execute phase. This is the doing phase. This is the phase that everyone says you need to get to. This is the one where I think the sooner you start it, probably the better off you're going to be. Now, the doing phase is where I actually will be executing the campaign. This is where I'm going to be playing Mothership. I'm going to find a group and essentially see how it goes, and hopefully ease my players in with some more one-shot style sessions, and maybe that it evolves into a campaign, but essentially just starting to apply what I've learned. This is the scariest part, and I think the best way to do this is literally just to set a date. So I plan on setting a date approximately 2 months from now. It's going to be sometime in April, depending on if I have travel or anything else in the way. But ideally, sometime in April, I will get a group together, and that is when I'll start actually applying the practice of being a game master. So that's the structure of my plan for learning basically any hobby, but in this case, becoming a game master, and essentially, more specifically, a game master for a Mothership RPG game. Super excited to move forward with this. I am just so just blown away by the world of RPGs, and I want to be part of kind of this creative community. So I hope you maybe found some of this useful, and maybe you can apply some of this to either your own path on becoming a game master, and maybe some of these resources that I've shared will help you. But I hope maybe if you want, follow along and see how this journey goes for me, and I hope we can provide some more advice for avoiding some pitfalls that I'm sure I'm going to be running into. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.